Hey everyone, welcome to this week's show. Hey, stay tuned because in a few moments you're going to hear the story of one of the most powerful women I've ever spoken with in my life. You're going to hear from Nina Sossaman Pogue. She's a sought-after speaker, a best-selling author, and a podcast host. And her story is so extraordinary. She started off as an elite athlete, then went into television news, then into corporate America. So here's a cool thing. Nina left home at age 13 to go train with the USA gymnastics team. And during that time, she graced the cover of magazines all over the world, right alongside with Mary Lou Retton. But unfortunately, she failed to make the Olympic team in 1984. So as a young girl, 16, 17 years old, her entire identity was in question. So she went back to high school, picked herself up, went on to LSU, became an elite gymnast there. But once again, bad news. She blew her knee out, and that ended her gymnastics career. So now at a young age of roughly 19, again, her entire identity was in question. She had to ask herself, who am I? Her entire life has been dedicated to gymnastics, and that's over. But she didn't stay down long. She graduated, and then she went on to a 20-year career as an Emmy Award-winning journalist and news anchor. This woman's life is ever-evolving and transformative. She went from gymnastics to television to the high-tech world, and she celebrated as a celebrated executive. She actually navigated her company to go public. This woman is a resilient powerhouse. She has conquered life's obstacles with grace and courage. And the one question she'll ask you in this episode is when you're going through difficulties and when you're going through challenges, who will you be on the other side of it? So please stay tuned.
Hello, and welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast with your host, peak performance coach, Brian Bosley. Are you stuck on the hamster wheel of life, spinning and spinning, but not really moving forward? Are you ready to jump off and soar? Are you finally ready to sculpt your life? If so, you've landed in the right place. This podcast is created and broadcast just for you. All of you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about Brian and the Bamboo Lab, feel free to reach out to explore your true peak level at www.bamboolab3.com.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Bosley, and today we have, as you already heard in the earlier bio, we have the triple threat, Nina Sossaman Pogue on. So, Nina, my new friend, welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Hey, Brian, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
It's a pleasure, man. I enjoyed our conversation before we started recording.
Yeah, you're really kind because I was all over the place when we were chatting, so... Yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing with your tribe there.
Yeah, let's do it, man. So I've learned a little bit about you, but if you could just share what you want to share about just who you are, share with the Bamboo Pack. Hey, I'm Nina. Here's who I am. Maybe your childhood, a little bit about you, what inspired you to growing up, and then we'll get into all the amazing things you've been doing with your life.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Hi, everyone. So right now, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. That's where I live, and I'm in my 50s. So I'm a speaker and an author and all those things, but if you play my resume backwards, I was a news anchor for lots of years. I was a tech exec for lots of years. I was also a gymnast and a member of the U.S. gymnastics team. I've had 3 kids. And so part of who I am is all of those. But if you start at my childhood and play my resume forward, it's a lot of ups and downs. So as a kid, I grew up a Navy brat, and I found gymnastics, and I loved gymnastics. It was kind of my safe space, no matter where we lived or who was around. That's where I felt most at home. And so I moved away from home at 13. I made the U.S. team, which was a big deal. So I cover magazines, and I'm traveling all over the world, Japan, Hungary, Germany, Australia. And then I don't make the Olympics in 84. Those were the years when Mary Lou was there. Remember Mary Lou Retton?
Oh, yeah.
So Mary Lou was on the team, and we got to room together some too, but it's because it was Retton and Rofi. My maiden name's Rofi. It's not because we were number 1 and number 2. The first year that Mary Lou won the USA championships, I won Miss Congeniality.
Really?
So I'm pretty proud of that. But yeah, she was always number one, and I was always the one that was not number one, but everybody liked being around. That was fun.
But you didn't make the Wheaties box.
I didn't make the Wheaties box. Yeah. Her daughter ended up going to LSU where I went. So we reconnected and stuff as adults. And so it's been fun to, reconnect with her. Anyway, so I digress.
That's awesome.
So I was on the U.S. team. I didn't make the Olympics. Ripe old age of 16, had to go back to my high school with my, tail tucked between my legs and felt like my life was over and I was embarrassed and thought I was a loser and really a difficult time in my life. But then I, found my way forward and ended up going and competing at LSU, which is one of the top programs in the country back then, D1 school. And they just won the national championships.
Go Tigers.
Yeah, super psyched for those girls. It's the first time they've ever won in all the years that LSU has been in the game. So I competed for them, and I really thought that I was in a good spot, found my tribe, and happy, way up on top again. But then I blew out my knee in a gymnastics competition, and in competition too. So a room, picture the PMAC, the Pete Maravich Assembly Center, full, and I land and scream the F-bomb loudly many times when my knee went out. Not my proudest moment.
Can I find that on YouTube, you think?
No, thank goodness. YouTube wasn't a thing back in the 80s.
Well, somebody must have recorded it.
No, they don't have it. Or if they do, I've never seen it in all these years.
I'm gonna look this afternoon, I'm telling you.
Okay, good. If you find it, send it to me.
I will.
Anyway, so I blow out my knee, another real low moment in my life. I lost my identity. I identified as an gymnast back then. And I think about it. So back then, it was like my bumper sticker and it was on my sweatshirt. I mean, that's how I identified. Nowadays, you have these young people and it's on their Instagram and their TikTok and their everything. So losing your identity is really difficult in those, young adult years. So I went through a really tough time there, but fortunately for me, there was a couple of people who pointed me in the right direction, and I ended up finding journalism, and I loved television. I became a news anchor, a reporter for a lot of years. I did political reporting. I started out as a sports reporter, you can imagine. And I did stories on the athletes at LSU, kind of the minor sports, track and field and gymnastics and volleyball and golf. I did lots of stories on that starting off, but then I really got my legs under me in journalism and became a political reporter, an investigative journalist, and then I became a news anchor. And I spent almost 20 years in news, which was a really cool time. I mean, I've flown through hurricanes and met presidents, and it just was a big part of my life.
Was this in Charleston, Nina?
I started in WBRZ of Baton Rouge first. Okay. That was my first station. And then I moved to Charleston. I've been in Charleston for most of that time. Yeah. I became a news anchor. The only place I ever anchored was here in Charleston, the news anchor here, for many, many years. And it was it was like Anchorman days. I mean, if you picture that movie, I mean, literally big hair, big earrings. It's embarrassing, but fun.
Were you kind of a big deal?
Oh, I was kind of a big deal.
Well, I see on your website, I saw an Emmy Award. So
so I had some great success there. Yeah, I won an Emmy for Best Newscaster in the Southeast. But that came after. So here I am going along doing really good in television, Charleston's favorite news anchor 7 times in a row. Wow. And then another big this in my life. On a Thursday, I get that award, year 7 of that. And then on Friday, the news director calls me into his office and he says, hey, we are releasing you from your contract without cause.
What?
And they pull in the little HR girl and they packed a box and handed it to me and walked me out the door. I was walking to the news set to go cut a news brief when it happened. And it was just nationwide budget cuts for the big conglomerate that owned us. And I just was in the mix. And so I was let go. And I remember sitting in my car thinking, now what? Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just won this award for you. So then I went and popped over and worked at the other TV station in town. Because at the time I had just gone through a divorce not long before that. And so, I had my kids were right here. I couldn't actually jump to a new town. I had my ex-husband and stuff, had the kids with me. We were co-parenting.
Right.
So I went across the road and they made me a great offer and I went to work for them. And that's when I won the Emmy for Best Newscaster in the Southeast, because you know how motivated you are after somebody's done you wrong. That was a little bit of a F you to the folks who let me go.
So after you got terminated from the one the television, you went to the other competitor and won the Emmy.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Exactly.
That's balling right there. That's awesome.
So I did that. So that was a thing, and one of those moments in my life where I was really proud that I had not just gotten through that, but they rose my game to a new level. A little bit of a poke in the eye of those guys. So that was a big part of my life. And then during that time, while I was Charleston's favorite news anchor now for the 8th, 9th, or 10th time in a row, and I was best newscaster in the Southeast and won the Emmy for that. I went through the hardest thing in my life. We'll talk more about it, but I went through a car accident, not a car accident, but an accident, in which I went from reporting the headlines to being in the headlines, and went through a really dark time. But I found my way through that, and I got back up on my feet, and then I ended up going from TV to tech. And I had huge success in the tech sector. So I became a vice president at my friend's startup, and we grew it from 250 people to 1,200 and took the company public. And I was running marketing comms during their IPO. So back and forth to New York all the time on a little jet, like a whole new chapter in my life, and had big success. So the long answer that I've given you is my life has been high highs and low lows. And it has brought me to this moment now where I really like to share the low lows and how I got through them, so other people can make sure that whatever they're going through, whatever struggle they're going through, there's always a path forward.
I'm not even going to follow my typical protocol with you with my questions. We're just going to walk through this, man. There's so much to unpack with you. And I don't know if I mentioned this already to the Bamboo Pack, but I want to share right now. Stop for a minute. I want to have you, when you're done with this episode, please go to the show notes. Go to the bottom of the show notes. You're going to see 3 links. One is to Nina's website and 2 are to her 2 books. This is Not the End: Strategies to Get Through the Worst Chapters of Your Life, which I'm getting a free copy of, I hear, after this podcast. So I'm happy for that.
I'm sending you one.
Yeah, man. And the other one is, But I Want Both: The Working Mom's Guide to Creating a Life She Loves. One was rated a 4.8 star on Amazon, the other one a 4.9. So these are books you want to grab. So I wanted to mention that. I'm going to mention it again before we're done today. But I want you to please, I'm going to invite you and actually kind of nudge you to go look at those books. So let's go through this, man. Let's start talking about the lows, because I think so many times, Nina, when people, the feedback, as I shared with you earlier, that I get from so many of the Bamboo Pack subscribers and listeners out there is they love to hear these incredible people that come on the show. They want to hear that these people also have gone through some really dark shit in their lives, those dark days. And because so many people tune into this show because they are struggling with something, or they there's something's holding them back. They're the hamster on the hamster wheel, and they're trying to dig through that. So if you could start unpacking some of those lows of the lows you've had, because you've certainly had a lot of highs. And I want to bring those back up again. But if you want to go through share what you want to share, but I'm going to let you take the wheel for a minute.
Well, gosh, there's a lot to go with there. But I think in honor of the Olympics, which are just kicking off and part of our summer here as we record this, let's talk about the gymnastics lows a little bit. I think it's really important. And I think your audience will appreciate this too. When I lost my sport, it was everything that I knew in my life. I truly felt like my life was over. Like I had wasted my whole life in a gym. Like I was a failure at the ripe old, as a teenager. I was 19 when I blew a knee out. So not only did I not make the Olympics, but then I blew my knee out, and I'd spent my whole life. I'd never been to a high school football game. I never dated, never done anything but gymnastics. And I say that, on the other hand, I had traveled the world and done all those things. But in a teenager's head, I felt like I had wasted my life. And I think it's really great to note now, with all the, perspective that I have at that time. And I talk about this in my book. It's my favorite thing to talk about. It's my chapter 6 thinking. It's what my daughter calls it. She says her friends are she's 25. So my friends are always a mess. I have to do chapter 6 on them all the time. Yeah. So, I have to do chapter 6 on them all the time. But the thinking is, so when I lost my sport, I do a little math. I make you I ask you to look at your life in a timeline. And Brian, you can do this too. If you turn a piece of paper sideways and you just draw a line, from 0 to 100, and you put 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, how, all the way to if you live to be 100, which I'd like to live to be 100, but I need to drink less wine and take better care of myself. But we'll see. But that's the goal.
Dude, AG1 is the ticket.
That's it. That's the goal.
AG1 and Alpha Brain, two of the greatest
I'm a
products
big fan. Yeah. I like the Golden Mind too, that other product. But yes, I'm all on board with all of the things, the cold therapy and
cold plunges. Yeah.
Yes. But anyway, so you draw this line, and then you can take whatever you're dealing with now, and you can take today. So however many days old you are today, like drop yourself onto that line of your timeline of your life, and you can do a little math and look at your life differently. Like put on there all your years you did a certain career, or married to a certain person, or lived in a certain place. You could draw that out on that timeline. And when I did that, I could see the gymnastics. When I was 19, gymnastics was 75% of what I knew in life.
Right.
So of course it felt like my whole life. My life experience at 19 was 75% gymnastics. I've been since about 4 years old. I've been a gymnast. They put me in gymnastics. I was hyper and couldn't sit still in dance class. So all those years, 75% of my life was gymnastics when I was 19 and lost my sport. Picture that. But then if I play it forward, and when I was 50 and my kids left for college and I was in that space in my life, my time that I'd been in television and my time that I'd been a parent and my time that I'd been in tech was all bigger compared to gymnastics. And I could see that at 50, it was 28% of my life. Gymnastics was 28% of my life. It wasn't my whole life, even though it felt like it then. And if I live to be 100, it's going to be 15% of my life.
Right.
So I can look at it really differently. You can do the math. Of course, it felt like everything because my life experience was different. But when you lose your sport, it's really, or when you go through a divorce, you just feel like life is never going to be the same. And for me, and I hope for your listeners too, if you do this and you can put yourself on a dot, and even on my bad days, I will put myself on that dot now and go, look at all that blank space ahead. Anything can happen in the blank space ahead. The magic of that is the blank space ahead. You can kind of put some math around how long these things have gone on in your life, and then you can see the percentage of your life it was, and you can play it forward and go, look at all the blank space ahead. And that's freaking mine. I could do whatever I want with it. I could go off the rails tomorrow and get like a face tat, do my hair purple, and, ride across the country on a Harley. And their motorcycles scare me. But
and you have to send me a new headshot if you do that then.
Yeah, it'll be a little different. For those of you who are ahead of the scene, that is not my luck, just for the record. Yeah.
I love that exercise. I'm going to commit to you. On Friday, I have a little extra time. I get done coaching at like 11:30 in the morning. I'm going to do the chapter 6 exercise. I started doing it here, but I put some ideas down, but because I'm 57, I'm like, I like the magic of the blank space. So I think we're
the same age. Hey, wait, we're the same age. 1966?
67.
Okay, well, I'm a little older than you.
Yeah. Well, trust me, your headshot does not make you look older than I do. Trust me.
I'm 57 as well,
yeah.
So we're on the same page.
I'm a March 20 baby.
Gotcha. I'm a December baby.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm just 4 months older, so 3 months older. So I'm sorry.
But anyway, when you do that exercise, you can see what your life looked like, and then you do the math and go, oh, this segment of my life was this percentage of my life. It really helped me with relationships. Like, oh, that marriage wasn't a waste. It was just like a little percentage of my life, and I learned a lot from it and got these great kids. Oh, good.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I love that. Should I wait to get your book before I do the chapter 6 exercise?
No, you can go ahead and do it.
Okay.
But there's more to it. But I do prompt you with places you lived and have all the prompts. I actually do a workshop. I do a lot of corporate speaking now. I do a workshop with that. I call it your lifetime timeline workshop. And it's even good when I talk with leadership groups or leadership teams if they're like executive offsites, because I'll have them think, what is your legacy? What are you leaving behind? Is it just what you're doing? Is it who you're being? It's a really cool concept. You can find commonalities in the things that you did in life. That's how I figured out that, oh yeah, I've always been everybody's cheerleader and helped people. I was Miss Congeniality. I was Charleston's favorite news anchor. I did a bunch of nonprofit work. It's kind of who I am.
You're like Sandra Bullock.
Right. I know. One of my favorite movies, by the way.
I don't know if I've ever seen it, but I know that I know.
Oh, okay. That's your homework for Friday.
All right.
You got to go back and watch that.
I'd rather do the chapter 6 exercise. Trust me.
Anyway.
I don't want to diverge too or get you too distracted on this, but I want to ask you, how is it really at 19, 16, not making the Olympic team, devastated, go to LSU, blow out your knee at 19? I mean, I can't imagine what that does to you. Like you said, you lose your identity.
Yeah, well, and they put me in, you had to work for the university in order to keep your scholarship back then. Okay. So and my coach was none too happy. She brought in this, top recruit, and then I blew out my knee, and I ended up working in the laundry room. I used to joke, I still joke, there was a moment there where my claim to fame was going to be I washed Shaquille O'Neal's jockstrap. That might have been it. But thank goodness I found a path forward. You
didn't rest on those laurels.
No. So, but I worked in the laundry room, and back then, I was in a wheelchair for a few days, and then I had this big thing on my leg, and I'm crutching around, and I would work in the laundry room. I had to get up and go to therapy. I would take my 2 Percocets with a shot of Jaeger, and I was just in a bad spot. I was not a happy camper. I didn't say I made all great choices. Don't tell me. I'm not going to pretend that I made all the best choices in life. But I was just not in a good mind. No mindset. A bad space in my brain. And I went through a tough time there. And I was really fortunate. One day I was doing laundry, and I would change it all out, and this was under the stadium, and then I'd walk out of this laundry room, and I'd lean up against the wall, kind of lean my crutches up against the wall and sit in the sunshine. And all the other athletes are walking to practice and going back and forth. And, nobody really talks to you because you're kind of the example of what could happen. So it's not that you're a leper, but it's not like I wasn't real approachable either. I was pretty grumpy at the time, but I was always alone in that space. And I had this one counselor who was an academic counselor. They didn't have mental health counselors back then. You just were left out to take care of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
But this one guy came by every once in a while, and he would say, "Hey, how you doing?" And I would say something snarky like, "Great, can't you tell? Best day ever," because that's me. And then one day he actually sat down, and we started chatting, and he would stop every once in a while and talk with me. And then he said, "What are you going to do? What do you think life's going to look like after this? What else do you want to do?" And I had no thoughts of that. I hadn't thought that at all. All I'd been thinking about was how pissed I was at where I was and how I ruined my whole life. I'd all thinking in the past, which is, that's where depression lives. And I hadn't thought about the future at all. And so he got me thinking about the future, and he encouraged me to work for sports information instead of the laundry room and try to get in there. And then I found my way to television and found my path forward. So I went through a really tough time trying to figure out not just the physical. I can remember being in a little harness thing they put you in, and they put you in a swimming pool, and they put you in a harness, and you try to walk and put your feet down and use that leg again. My leg was mangled. It was my 3rd surgery. There was not much left to fix in there. Took stuff out of my ankle, and they put screws in and stuff, which of course later in life I did triathlons on, which I just think is funny now. But back then they put you in the swimming pool, and they try to get you to start walking. And I think it's one of those the universe speaking to me moments. They had drained the pool the night before, and they were just filling it back up. And I'm doing this exercise, and my foot touched the bottom. Oh. And so I had this moment where my foot touched the bottom, and I could feel the muscles twitch. And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be able to walk again. I'm going to be okay." Uh-huh. And that was another turning point. But yeah, going through that, you really have to figure out who you're going to be on the other side of it. And it took that person having, taking a moment to talk to me every once in a while. And it took myself touching my foot down and realizing that leg was going to work again. And, a few other things that happened in my life to get me to move forward, because I went straight to trying to make up for lost time and all the other bad decisions. I like to say I graduated from LSU in Booze and Boys. That was my degree. That was my degree, Booze and Boys. So I had 3 more years to go through, which took 4. I was on the 5-year plan to get out of LSU. It took me a little while.
I did that. I'm a 6-year veteran of college.
There you go.
With my bachelor's degree. I think it was 5.5 actually. What did you get? What was your degree in?
General studies. How's that? That's what it says on a piece of paper, something like that. But I went into journalism, but it was going to be I didn't have the credits to go over to get a journalism degree. So I did the whole track to communications and journalism, but I didn't have money. If I didn't have scholarship, I couldn't go to college. So I ended up getting out with a general college degree, but I already had an internship at the TV station. So It was not a true journalism degree, though. It's just general studies in parentheses there, it says communications. Yeah.
So having that internship, that's what you got you into journalism and television?
Correct. Yeah, I had an internship, and it was because I knew all the athletes and I could tell all their stories, and they liked me. Again, I was likable. And so I became the go-to in the newsroom to do all the other stories. And obviously in Baton Rouge, LSU athletics is a big part of the sports department, and what they're doing each night. So I found my way in that way.
So how long did it take before your identity began to shift from, gymnast to then obviously being injured and not being a gymnast any longer to being a news anchor? When did you start noticing that shift? Like, my identity I've reclaimed a new identity.
I think it was about 3 years. It wasn't quick. Okay. So I always tell everybody, it's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay that way. That's one of my biggest mantras. I think it took me and I was in college. I was still figuring out who I was. And that's a great place to figure out who your identity is. I found like-minded people, and I went in different directions. I got into bodybuilding. I got really into training really heavy and health and fitness in college because it was new and different. I taught aerobics, and I coached some gymnastics, and I got big into bodybuilding. That became this new thing I was really focused on. And then journalism really became, as soon as I stepped in the newsroom and felt the energy of the newsroom, I was like, this is me. I'm all in on this. I just knew it in a minute. Yeah. I do sometimes joke that if Cirque du Soleil had been around back then, I'm not sure. It wasn't a thing. I think I would still be like the old lady in like tights trying to like do things, jump on trampolines.
Hey, it's not too late. A lot of blank space.
That's right.
A lot of blank
That's
space,
right.
My friend.
After I get that face tat, I'm going to go out to Cirque du Soleil and try out.
Go back to Percocet and Jägermeister.
No, never do that one again.
My son will like to hear that my son, that's kind of what he likes to drink. He's in college. He'll drink some Jägermeister sometimes. And I'm like, dude, I don't imagine, that stuff tastes like poison to me.
It does now. I don't know what, I would never drink that again. It tastes like alcohol, licorice, medicine, licoricey alcohol medicine. Doesn't taste like a food product at all.
I don't like medicine or licorice, so I don't know I'd want to drink anything. I think it's a rite of passage for people, though. I drank Jaeger last night. But
I haven't done it since college, so there's that.
So that was obviously the gymnastics experience was, obviously when you didn't make the team, and then when you blew your knee out, those were your low points of that. And then let's talk about like as your next phase of as being a news anchor, and obviously very well acclaimed news anchor, reporter, journalist. What was that like? What were some things you went through during that period of your life? Yeah, so I loved television. I loved telling other people's stories. I love meeting people. I think everybody has a story. I'm one of those people that can find the good in whatever I'm reporting on. I took it very seriously. If I'm going to have to tell you bad news, I want to be the one to bring it to you and break it to you in a way that's fair, balanced, and accurate, and with some kindness. So I really love that space. But then in my 30s, I was doing great in it. I had these two beautiful children at home. I was Charleston's favorite news anchor. When you saw a picture of me, you would think I was, pretty much perfect and living the perfect life. It was pretty, and I had a good job, and I had a handsome husband, all the things. But then in my 30s, I went through this downward spiral where my marriage fell apart. I lost my job, and my dog died. It was like a bad country song. It was like a span. I call it a bad country song. Like my marriage fell apart. I lost my dog. That's a trifecta. That's like a perfect storm of bad shit happening. It was. Wow. It was like it, and I call it. My life became a country song. It's my marriage fell apart. I lost my job, and then my dog died. But those things happened all within the same year. It just was this downward flibbity-flobbity down into the depths again. And I had to figure out who I was. I was fortunate after I was let go. I told you that story. I sat in the car for a long time after they packed my box and said, "You're done." And I didn't know. It was one of those now what moments, I call them. I didn't know what to do. Like, I couldn't go home because my sitter was there with the kids, and I wasn't ready to talk to her or the kids, deal with that. And I couldn't go out anywhere. I was full of makeup and hair, and people would be like, "Why aren't you on the news, Nina?" Right. And back then everybody watched the news. It wasn't in your pocket. Everybody tuned in at 6:00. So I couldn't go anywhere. And I drove past, my parents lived in town. I drove past their house, and they weren't home.
And I went in my mom's closet and I got a pair of her sneakers because all I had heels. I got a pair of her sneakers, which were size too small, and I squeezed my feet in those, and I went and walked along the beach. I live in Charleston, thank goodness, and so my happy spot has always been, near water. So I walked along that beach in my suit with my mom's shoes on. It's kind of funny to think about now. Trying to figure out, like, how did I get here? What's next? Like, what am I doing in my life? And I finally, went home, dealt with things, and then I got to a point where they made me a deal, and I had 6 months. As long as I said nice things, and I didn't say that they let me go, that we both had agreed to it. They didn't want it out in the press that I had been terminated. They just said, we're going to say we parted ways amicably or whatever, and they would pay me my full fee, my full salary for 6 months. And I was like, I'm just going to take this 6 months. And so one of the things that I did to get through that is I spent 6 months playing with my kids on the beach and being the mom that I wanted to be and being a very different person than I had been in my very driven years doing television and living life, and figured out who I was. And I think that's probably the first time in my life that I really looked at, is it what I'm doing or who I'm being? That concept of it's not what you do, it's who you're going to be. And I said, I just want to be this person. This is the mom I want to be. This is the friend I want to be. This is the person I want to be. And I wanted to be successful. Don't get me wrong. There was not a part of me that didn't want to be successful in there too. Wasn't all unicorns and rainbows. I wanted to work and make something. And that's when I, realized I really loved television and I wanted to get back in it no matter what. Because I'd spent years figuring out how to do it. I was good at it. Mm-hmm. So, but that was that phase through there. And I have a framework that I share with folks when they're going through a tough time now that I created much later in my 50s, and I can look back at all these things. But one of the pieces of it I learned in that time frame in those 30s when going through all those things was this, first the timeline piece and what exactly am I dealing with now, but the people, like, who do I need to pull into my life? Who needs to be different than what has been in the past? Who's helping and who's hurting, and how am I going to do that moving forward? You can't go by yourself. You got to figure that out. The kind of person and parent and all those things you want to be. And then I was like, what is the story I'm telling myself? Because I was back to saying I was a failure and a loser like I was when I was 16. And here I was not a failure or a loser. I was successful. Right. 2 weeks ago, actually 2 hours ago, I felt very successful. Right? I'm still the same person I was then. And so I used that time to go, wait a minute, I still was an elite athlete and was an award-winning journalist at the time. And I had these two great kids and all these other things I could look at and go, I'm not a failure. I'm just failing right now. I'm not a failure. So I had to change the language in my head. But that was a tough time to go through. And I did decide during that time, I sat and made lists like so many of us do and went, what am I good at? What do I like? Why do I like this? What don't I want to do? And that's when I realized I really liked television. I liked news. I wanted to get back into it. So I made the decision to do so.
Wow. I love that statement. I'm not a failure. I'm just failing right now.
I think I just said that on your show for the first time. I just wrote it down when I said it. I'm like, that was good.
No, it's your quote, not mine. But I'm going to use it again. I will definitely give you props for it whenever I use it. But I love that because I think a lot of us, I know myself included, at times when things aren't going well, I'm making mistakes, I'm doing stupid things, or the business might be. I might lose a client or do a bad show. I'm hard on myself inside. I don't talk about it openly, but I'm hard. And I start going down that deep rabbit hole, a dark rabbit hole of, maybe I'm a failure in life. Maybe I'm never going to be, I'll never be the man I want to be. But really, it's like, no, I like that. Right at this moment, I failed at something, but I'm not a failure. Keep it that simple.
And 100%. I'm going to use that over and over. I really like that it came out of my mouth. But I do. I'm all about the self-sabotaging language. I talk about that a lot because we overgeneralize. That's one way, this always happens to me. That's not healthy. Or we catastrophize. This is never going to work. Everything's ruined. That kind of that's horrible language. The words in your head come out of your mouth, and that becomes your friggin' story. Or we exaggerate. I got a million things to do. This is so many miles to go, and we just got to get ourselves out of that language. Or the other piece is the belabor piece and the self-sabotage. Like, if I'd only done this, if I'd have married that guy, if I'd have done this different, if I'd have chosen a different career, if I hadn't gone to work that day or something, we do that. Self-sabotage. So dangerous. So dangerous.
Well, and I think we look at failure as a negative. And I have a really good story. I was privileged to be part of a team when I got out of college. I worked for American Express Financial Advisors, and I was a couple of really good friends of mine. We were financial advisors, but we were young in our 20s, mid-20s, and our division was taken over by a gentleman by the name of John Hance, who now is I think he's the wealthiest man in Detroit now. He's just a really incredibly intelligent guy. He got his master's degree from Harvard in 10 weeks through an executive crash program, and we were working for him. And just a genius of a guy. And we were at Monterey, California. We were at a leadership conference. This is back in the early mid-90s. And we were at this buffet table. And John was at the time, I think he was like 35 years old, maybe 33. And he was a division vice president, group vice president. There were probably about 30 of them around the world at a high level at American Express. And he was by far the youngest, by far. Sometimes he was half the age of the other people who his peers were. But our group, our division that he was in charge of was doing twice as much in sales as number 2 was. So we were by far the superstars in the company. His team was led by him, maybe 500 people or maybe 1,000 people. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, and people didn't like him because he was young, good looking, brass, highly intelligent. He was a technical genius for sure. And by far the most successful. And we were at this table or at this buffet, and I was kind of 2 people from him as we were getting our food. And somebody said, "Mr. Hance," because we made a lot of mistakes in our group. We were the Detroit region, which was Toledo. It was a big group of people, a big bunch of cities, but that was his division. And he said, "I see you crashed some planes this year, made some mistakes." And John stopped for a minute and he paused and he said, "Yeah," I forget who the other guy was, an older guy. And he said, "Yeah, I did. But I crashed planes. You don't have the fucking balls to fly." And I'm like, man, and everybody just stopped. It was like didn't know how. The guy was red in the face. He couldn't respond. It was like, then we just got our food and kept going. And I'll never forget that moment. And it taught me a valuable lesson. I don't even know if we spoke about it afterward, but that's perfectly stated. Perfectly stated. Perfectly.
That is epic. I love that story.
That was so
cool.
And
I'm big. I'm into fail fast, keep trying things. You're going to... Regret is a bitch. You don't want to live life and have that. That's the one I will never have. I will always go out and try and do. And yeah,
dude, you have got me writing down so many quotes here. Regret is a bitch. That sounds like a good book title. That's your next book. Regret is a bitch.
Make regret your bitch.
Make regret your bitch. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that we went down that road.
Okay. I know I liked at the beginning of the show before we started recording that we both said the F word.
Yeah, well, I'm really careful when I'm on podcasts and when I'm doing things, and I never curse from the stage.
No,
but yeah, I do have a bit of a penchant to curse a lot. My kids will say, "My friends are coming over. Can you not drop the F-bomb in the first 5 minutes?"
That's awesome. They're teaching you. They're scolding you for cursing.
Yeah, they're all in their. No, they used to in their high school. Now they don't care.
They don't
high
care.
School, they're like, "Mom."
It's not the last time they've heard the first and last time they've heard the F word.
No. Now they're on Mom's page. But when they were in high school, they thought, "Wow, stop."
So you've gone through some dark periods. I mean, and it's so amazing. And I want the audience to hear that. I want that person out there listening right now who's going through something troubling, going down that dark rabbit hole. I want you to really pay attention to Nina's story because, I mean, obviously the successes are there. The successes make the website, but it's the struggles and the tragedies and some of the major challenges she's gone through that have made her successes so much more glorious and so much more exponential. What would you say, and this is a question, I know what would be one of the biggest challenges, Nina, that you've ever gone through in your life? And then how did you overcome it? Is it one of the things we've talked about so far?
No, actually, my biggest challenge is one I don't always talk about openly. I've written a whole book on it, but when you read This Is Not the End, it is about my biggest challenge. I talk about my 5 big thises, whatever. I use the word this as in whatever you're going through. So my this is, because I don't know what anyone listening or what you are facing as a challenge, but it's your thing. This thing that you're dealing with is your this. So my biggest this, as I call it, was not making the Olympic team or blowing out my knee or divorce or getting fired, any of those. My biggest this happened when I was 37, and I was a very popular news anchor, and I went through this really traumatic experience that just changed me as a human and made me not sure if I wanted to go on. And I don't always share it, but and you and I talked a little bit beforehand, and I will share it here because this is the type of podcast and the group, your tribe. Yeah. Wait, you don't call it a tribe. What do you call your people again?
Bamboo Pack. Yeah.
Bamboo Pack.
I think it'd be a tribe.
I went to LSU. We're always a crew, so you're pack. Okay. Yeah, with a K. Anyway, my biggest struggle, I think your audience, your pack would appreciate to hear, because I think everybody goes through tough times, and that's why people tune in here. So I was, and it can be triggery. I'll just give you a little trigger warning for anybody who has some PTSD or around accidents of children and things. So I was 37, as I mentioned. I had 3 young kids at home, popular news anchor, and I had decided that on this day I wanted to be like all the other moms and just pick my kids up from the bus stop, because I never got to do the normal things. And so I took the afternoon off. I drove over to the bus stop because we were going to run some errands afterwards. And the bus came into my neighborhood down the street at my best friend's house, one of my best friend's house, my co-anchor's wife. So my co-anchor lived in the same community I had, in a big suburban neighborhood in Charleston, South Carolina. And so they lived right down the roads, and his wife and I were friends. So I drove over there, parked in their driveway, and spent time with her before the bus got there, because they had a new baby and we were playing with a new baby. And then the bus comes around the corner, and kind of like you can imagine in a suburb on a beautiful fall day, you kind of hear the kids before they even got off the bus. Oh, yeah. But then, the doors open to the bus, the kids crawl out, pile out like ants. Our boys throw their backpacks, and they were in the first grade together, and they're running around and playing, and lots of moms and kids and siblings there at this crowded bus stop. And then it comes time to go, and like, hey, we got to run some errands. Grab this backpack, jump in the car, and I'm buckling my son in. How was your day? What's going on? And then I go to leave, and then in that hustle and bustle of a crowded bus stop on a gorgeous day with all those people, no one had noticed that my friend's baby, who was 11 months, had crawled under my car. And I backed up. And in that moment, my whole world changed, obviously. He survived. Now, I'll tell you now, he's in college and he's okay. All right. So, yeah. So this has been, we're coming up on 20 years ago now, but it's been, 17, 18 years now. More than that. Coming up on 20. So, and I didn't write my book till 15 years after this happened. But in that moment, the tire hit his skull. And so in that moment, in the days and weeks that followed, we weren't sure if he was going to make it. And so I went to a really dark place in my head and thought, this is who I am for the rest of my life, is I'm the lady who injured the baby, or worse, the one who, killed the baby. And I thought, this is who I am. Now, again, he lived, so that did not become the case, but he could have very easily. It was a million little miracles that saved him. So he ended up getting out of hospital in a few weeks. His mom and I held hands and walked down the hall of that hospital and said, we're going to get through this together. Obviously, his dad and I didn't go on the air for weeks. The morning show people had to do the news. There were news trucks on my front lawn. There were prayer vigils all over the town. It was a traumatic experience for our whole community. But then he got out. He got better. We went back on the air. The world went on to other stories, and the world kept turning. But I had a really difficult time, and this is not just my story to tell. Obviously, they have their own experience with this, so I don't always tell it. But I had a difficult time, my part of it, with trying to figure out who that was. I mean, who is this new person that I am? Because I didn't want this to be me. I didn't want this to be part of my story. I just wanted to be everybody's favorite news anchor and the world-class athlete with cute kids and the thing. Like, that's all I wanted to be. I didn't want this to be part of me. And I didn't see a way forward in which this was going to be okay to be part of me. And so I would have this suicidal ideation all the time. I'd want to step into traffic. Before I went back on the air, I remember standing in front of the mirror. It was the day I was supposed to go back on the air after a few weeks. He was out of the hospital. Everything was doing better. And I told my co-anchor, he and I met. We sat on the end of his dock. And I said, I'll go back on first. You spend some more time with your family. When you're ready, you come back. And so that was our plan. And it was the day I was supposed to go back on the air. And I stood there in front of my mirror, and I grabbed my husband's razor. I had just gotten remarried right before this had happened. And I grabbed the razor and I thought, if I just slice up my face, then I won't be pretty and they won't want me on TV. And then I thought, or I could just be done with this all. And I'm looking at the bathtub and I was like, whoa, where's, and I realized how crazy these thoughts were in my head. And I did what my therapist, I had a good therapist at the time, told me to do. I put down the razor and I called him and he's like, whoa, we have a plan. You got to trust me. This is not going to be the headline forever. You got to trust me that life's going to be okay on the other side of it. Stick to the plan, stick to the script, go back on, our plan was I would go back on the air for 1 year and then decide if I wanted to keep doing this and decide what life looked like. 1 year. We set a 1 year target. We had all the things planned out. So I did that. I set down the razor and I went back to the plan and he was totally right. And I was fine. And the world saw what it looked like to, lead with love and go through an experience like that and all get through it together. And this little guy went on to elementary and then high school and then college and had an amazing, life. So it's scary now to think.
What's his first name?
His name's Sam.
Sam?
I talk about him in my book, Sam.
Hey, Sam, this one goes out to you, brother. Now go change the world.
He is. He's an amazing human. He is going to change the world.
I'm happy to hear that.
Got great stuff going on.
Wow.
Yeah. So this obviously changed all of our lives. And I share it because as horrible as it sounds, I think it's important because there's people who feel like they're never going to be on the other side of something, especially with everything's so public now. Yeah. Mine was very public pain. I call it public pain. But now with everything on social media and everything out there, everything's public pain. Everybody knows all your business. It's very hard to do something in private. So this concept of public pain, you feel like it's always going to be a part of you and who you are. By the time I worked in tech, I'll tell you, those folks this wasn't even part of the story. Half of our technology company had come in from other parts of the country. They didn't know anything about that when I was working with them. They just knew that I was, a vice president of the company and I worked hard and I was doing my thing and nothing could faze me. Obviously nothing could faze me because I'd gone through something so tough. Right. Like, you bring it, I got you. That's what I was known for. I was known for being that person. I wasn't known for this. But at the time, I couldn't imagine my life, ever being happy again or feeling joy, especially in the weeks and months that followed. I couldn't ever imagine that because I was so numb. Your body goes through these weird phases of grief and numbness. And then I couldn't imagine anybody looking at me differently, like going back on the air and being anything but that. But within a few months, that story was long gone. Everybody was back to, I won Charleston's favorite news anchor the next year.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, for the next 2 years, that next year. And then the year when I was off the air and I wasn't even doing the news anymore, I won it that year too. So, after I left for tech. So people don't ever realize when you're really gone. I've just been there so long, people voted for me. So that's what they remembered me for who I was and for how I'd done the news for those years and all my nonprofit work and all the other things in my life. But I share the story because it's just really difficult when you're in the middle of something to think that life will ever be okay again. You won't be the same. I will tell you, if you're going through something and you're listening, you won't be the same on the other side of it. You will be different. That's what resilience is. You will adapt in a positive way somehow, and you will be different on the other side. But the new you can be even better if you choose for it to be.
Nina, can I ask you a question? I think of this often. You made a really good point. Earlier you said, who will I be on the other side of this? And then you said you will be different. Do you think in a lot of cases we have the choice? And I think when COVID hit, when we found out everything was shutting down, I called all my clients and I told my son the same thing. Nobody will be the same after this is all over. We will either be stronger or we'll be weaker, and the choice is ours. It's how we handle the situation. Do you think we have that choice to decide if we're going to be stronger or weaker, better or worse after something?
Absolutely. Yep, that is up to you. How you handle that is what resilience is. It's your ability to adapt in a positive way to the things that happen in your life. I say it's your ability to adapt in a positive way to this, whatever this is that you're dealing with, and it's your ability, and it's a learned response. And that's why I put together this framework. It's taken me years to come up with this. I call it my resilience route navigator, kind of this GPS that you can tap into when something gets. So when you're going along and on a path, and all of a sudden you have to recalculate your route. This is my framework for that. But you absolutely, I 100% agree with you. You have a choice of how you're going to come out on the other side.
So it's your ability to adapt in a positive way to this.
To learn, yeah. So the definition of resilience that I lean into in all my research and my writing is your ability, a person's ability to learn, grow stronger, and adapt in a positive way to whatever happens. And so I spend a lot of time thinking about, well, what does that mean? Adapt in a positive way. Like somebody explain that to me. So that's what, right? Like just throw that out there. What does that mean? So I spend a lot of time, is it stoicism? Is it neuroscience? Is it behavioral therapy? Like cognitive behavior therapy? How am I supposed to adapt in a positive way? So that's what my books and my speeches are around. Like, how do you do that? But yes, you have 100%. It's in your power. It's in your power to come out on the other side and be whatever the hell you want to be.
You can say it.
I was trying to behave.
You almost.
That was me editing.
I caught the. So you said stoicism. Are you a fan of stoicism?
Oh, big fan. Big fan. I'm a big Ryan Holiday fan.
There you go.
I wear a quote by Marcus Aurelius around my neck.
Really?
The Amor Fati.
Oh.
And I wear he and Emerson. I'm a big Emerson fan too. What lies behind you and what lies before you are tiny matters compared to what lies within you. A big Emerson fan, big Ryan Holiday fan.
I am too. But The Obstacle is the Way. I think I've read it 5 or 6 times, and of course the Daily Stoic, his daily affirmations book. I've read that. I mean, this is the first year I changed it over to a Gay Hendricks, I'm a big fan of his work, The Big Leap, and he was on the podcast a couple of years or so ago, and his book is Your Big Leap Year, so it's a daily workout book. I changed over this year from the Daily Stoic to that, but I think I read the Daily Stoic like 5 years in a row every day. The daily. Oh. I love that material. When I read the Obstacle is the Way the first time, it stunned me. Like I was this is fucking amazing.
It's so well done. I have all 4 of his books on my shelf and his daily. I get his newsletter every day, and I'm a fan. I mention him in my book. I actually do. I do a segment on tattoos, and I mention Ryan Holiday because of his stoicism too. But I have a segment in there about tattoos, and I mention him having certain tattoos. So,
are you pro tattoo or?
I am tattoo agnostic, my friend. I'm tattoo agnostic. So you want to hear my tattoo story?
I do.
You can edit this piece out.
I don't edit anything out, so.
Oh, okay. Well,
nothing
here we go.
gets edited.
It's in the book. I mean, there's a section on tattoos in there, and I like to say we started this thing when my kids were little, and we would go to the beach, and at the beach you kind of see everybody's artwork, and then on the way home from the beach, I would go. They could be like first grade, and then they were their whole lives. On the way drive home from the beach is like 20 minutes for us, maybe half an hour if there's traffic. And so on the way home, I'd go, okay, today's the day. We're all going to get tattoos. What are you getting? And then they'd all have to come up with something. And I remember my daughter going, My Little Pony. And at one point, my son wanted to do this whole Minecraft up his leg. He actually designed it once. And then an infinity sign. And my other son, my middle son, he was like, I want to do pi. And then I'm going to have all the leg, as many numbers as I can have all the way down. Like, we had all these fun things throughout their lives of all the different tattoos they had. My son, who had Tommy John surgery, was a baseball player. Even in college, after his surgery, he's like, I'm going to have a tattoo and put flames up my arm once I start, throwing 100 again. And so it's always been a thing. But no one had ever gotten a tattoo because I would remind them, okay, if you had gotten that's what you loved so much right then. You're willing to put it on your body. That would still be on your body. And you've got I believe life is full of chapters and change, and you can decide who you're going to be. I don't want anything on my body that's going to define who I am right now, because I may not want to be this person in the future. I may want to be a different version of me. And so good or bad, Right. So I would always tell my kids that, just think my daughter would have like My Little Pony and then a heart and then an infinity sign and then her best friend's name, who's not her best friend anymore. She hasn't spoken to that girl in 10 years. All the things. So anyway, that's my tattoo. And then I mentioned Ryan Holiday has his book up one of his arms, and then Obstacle is the Way, and one of the other books up the other arm. And I'm like, he's so young. Like, I guess I'm older than he is. I'm like, he's going to run out of space. Like, that boy needs to stop writing. He needs a smaller font. If he's going to do this, he needs to choose a smaller font. And says he's going to run out of space to put all his books on his body.
I have I got a tattoo. So actually, my best friend from college, he and his wife visited last night. They left. I told you they left this morning, and he and I went in when we were in college. We were both playing rugby, and at the time, rugby was our thing. That we were just diehard rugby, fanatics. And We both got a rugby tattoo. He got Andy Cap, and with our team name on it. And then I got just a rugby player that a friend of mine had designed and drawn. And the weird thing is we left, and about a week later, maybe not even that, all the ink from that tattoo. This was back in the day. This was in the height of the AIDS crisis. And we went to a guy who we paid to have him do our tattoo in his house. We didn't know him. I said, well, what do you? He goes, go to the store.
Wait, all of this, Brian, all of this sounds bad.
It's all bad. Thankfully, we survived this. But he didn't even change the ink from one person to the other, or the thing. He just dipped it in alcohol. We watched him, and we didn't think anything. I mean, how I paid the guy, I said, so what do we owe you? Go up to the store and get my old lady a half gallon of vodka. That'd be good. That's how we paid the guy. But anyway, the ink was faulty, and it rose to the surface and just peeled off. So we had to go back in and get our tattoos redone on the open scar tissue wound of the original one. And it hurt like hell. It hurt like hell.
That's commitment right there.
It's commitment. I wanted that tattoo. So I still have it. It's getting faded now. Now, my daughter has on her wrist, I always told her when she was younger, remember who you are. And so every letter, everything was RWYA, when I write her letters and stuff. So she has RWYA on her wrist. Now, my son, Dawson, he loves the tattoos. He's got some tattoos on his arm, and he's a fighter. He's a boxer. He's a black belt in karate. So he has that, he's got some stuff. But everything, I tell them, you can get tattoos, but they have to mean something. You can't just go pick something out of a book and say, I want that drawing. No, they have to mean something. They have to symbolize something.
Well, that's a very on brand for your son to have tattoos. So mine never got any until my son got married, my oldest, and he and his wife got little matching tattoos. Okay. So that's kind of cool. But I think, and she's so funny. She has other artwork, and she's one that doesn't have to mean anything. She just thinks it's pretty and wants to put it on her body. I'm like, that's fine too.
Hey, do what you gotta do.
I guess for some people, but I was on the same vein as you for my children. I think my biggest thing was until they were out of college, I said, I don't want anything to define you. I want you to decide who you want to be. And that's what college is for. I don't want you to put anything on your body. I actually need to deal with them. No ink on your body and no babies, no pregnancy. And I will pay for college, every freaking penny of it. So they did. They got out and they knew that was part of the deal. I probably would have smudged and done it anyway, but because I wanted them to have an education. But that was the deal. And they took me seriously because I just wanted, and it wasn't anything pro or con for other people who take other routes, but for my guys who I know very well and I know how smart they are and how driven they are, and they're my kids. Unfortunately, they're a lot like me. Fortunately and unfortunately. But I just wanted them to have a clean slate when they got out of college. I wanted them to be able to go to college and be whoever they wanted to be without any commitment to anything. Because once you write something on your body, you're that guy. You're the one, like, you're committed to that thing. And I just wanted them to have a clean slate. And now, they are all very different. My daughter's in AI in New York. My son's fourth year med school. My other son's in the Air Force. He is out in Tinker Air Force Base. He's doing his thing out there. So I just wanted them to have a clean slate. That was my thing with tattoos. Just until you figure out who you want to be, and it's up to you to put them on you. And if you're Ryan Holiday and you're listening, please choose a smaller font because you're going to run out of space. We
try getting. Actually, I didn't, but one of my guests has been trying to get Ryan Holiday on the show. So hopefully we'll get him on someday. I would not, sir. I would have been the black sheep of your family because in college I had a baby and a tattoo. So my college would not have been paid for if you were my mother.
Yeah, you wouldn't have.
And I wouldn't be able to talk to you on this podcast right now either.
That's why I said everybody's route is different. That's the route I wanted for my children.
Yeah, it's their route.
My brother's kids didn't go to college. They went on and did their careers right out of high school, and they've had great success. It's whatever your route is. That was the route my kids were on, and that's what I kind of set my expectations. As a parent, you set expectations, and that was my expectation I set. Well,
from what I can tell, the route they've chosen that you helped create for them is working for all three of them.
So far, so good. Parenting is you get it. I always say I always lost parent of the year by January 3rd. Like really, I don't ever get it all right, but I try my best. I did the work, and I feel like I made really good humans. Well,
I hope your son in the Air Force knows how much we appreciate his service to our country too. So that goes without saying.
Thank you for saying so.
Of course. I have a question for you. Right now, we're going to do another show together. I hope you know that.
show? I hope so. It's fun.
Yeah, we're going to do another show. But I want to ask you right now, with all you've accomplished and all you've gone through, what do you consider to be a victory in life right now? What's a big win for you?
Well, we just said it. A big win for me is my kids all happy and healthy. Yeah. That is it. Like that, to make humans, and I always go, and I made little humans and they don't suck, and I'm out. I'm done. So big wins for me are I'm only as happy as my saddest kid, you know. That's a big win for me. And
how many quotes do you have in your arsenal?
Oh, I got a bunch of them. If you consider that a quote, that's a good one though. But I think a lot of parents are that way. I think you're only as happy as your saddest kid. So
that is a really good point.
Isn't that true?
Wow.
I think it's so true, right? Because we never really like, as much as I built mine to go out and be in the world and have wings and do their own thing. When they're struggling, it's on me. Like it's on my mind. It's in my brain. It's part of me.
It eats at us. It eats at us.
Yes.
It does. It's just like, I can't. I was, my son and I were having an argument maybe 8 months ago, and I was, it was via text, I think. No, maybe it was a phone call. Just a stupid argument on the phone, you know. Then we both kind of said, I got to go. And, you know, just immature on my end. And I was reading a book. My goodness, I'm going to feel awful if I can't think of it. Nudges from the Other Side, I believe. I had Mary on my show, the author, a couple of times. And as I was reading her book before she came on the show the first time, she had lost her son to a car accident. And I was just reading the book, and as I'm teared up reading this book, Nina. I'm sitting at my house alone. You know, it was like last fall sometime, and December maybe. And I'm tearing up reading this book, and I thought, and here I just had an argument with my son over something. At the time, it was like 20 minutes later.
Right?
I couldn't remember. I'm like, what did we even argue about? I think we were just both in bad moods. So I shot him a call or a text and said, hey, I texted him. I said, hey, I want you to know I love you, and I'm so very proud of you. And of course, right away, hey, Dad, I love you too. I can't wait to see you this weekend, type of thing. I'm like, our kids' emotions, good and bad, they pervade us. They carry me or they bring me down. I mean, because they're always like, I love that. You're only as happy as your saddest kid. It's powerful, dude.
Thanks.
So powerful.
Thanks. I like it too. I think that way a lot.
I didn't mean to call you dude, by the way.
Dude, you can totally call me dude. I want to be a dude. I mean that kind of a dude.
I was talking to a prospect yesterday on the phone, and for the first time, I'd never met her before, and we talked for like 40 minutes, and I'm really. I'd love to get this client on. I'm pretty positive that I will. But I was talking to her the first time, and like 3 times I called her dude, and I kept correcting myself. Finally, she goes, "You called me dude again." And I said, "I know I did." And at the end, she goes, "When you come into town, we're going to have to get dinner together because this is an interesting conversation." But I knew she was not like, I felt awful because I had just come off vacation. I'd spent like a week and a half with some friends, and my mouth got a little vulgar during that week and a half, and calling my friends dude and man, just stupid. And I just that vocabulary just kind of carried over through the work week. So anyway. So I
take it as a compliment. I feel like if you call me dude, we're now friends.
Yeah.
That's how I think of it.
Yeah, of course.
You wouldn't call me dude unless you felt really comfortable with me and thought I was a friend or someone you'd want to be friends with.
Amen to
so
that.
I'm taking dude as a compliment. I'm owning it.
You made the mistake of calling me from your cell phone, didn't you?
I did.
I'm a texter, man.
Oh, there you go. Dude, call me.
I'm one of those texters at 5 a.m. Hey, dude, get up and tackle the world, man. Come on. I don't know who it was. I think it was one of my uncles would say, "Get up and piss. The world's on fire."
Oh my gosh. There's a couple of those morning mantra folks who say hilarious things that I do tap into some mornings.
I know. One of my friends, every time I text or call him, I'll say, "How are you today?" I call him Chum. His name is Steve. He'll say, "If I was any better, vitamins would take me in the morning."
That's good. I haven't heard that one.
Okay, I have another question. I love this question, Nina, and I think you've given so much really useful wisdom, a very practical wisdom today. And so I kind of think the gist of the answer that I think I know what I'm going to hear, but I don't know. If I'm going to fly down to Charleston today, I'm going to bring my time machine with me. And we're going to go back in time. You pick the time of your life. I don't care if it's 16, 19, or 37. Pick a time frame in your life. And you sit down, and we go down, and we visit your younger, former self. And I'm just going to sit and observe. What life lessons would you tell that younger Nina?
Oh, well, I thought about this. Younger Nina in general, and better at it now that I'm a little older. I'm tough on myself. I would tell myself to be kinder to me. Especially kinder to me as I age. because we all, that youthful energy and exuberance and all of that is fantastic. But you do have to be a little kinder and gentler with your brain and your body as you get older and you take care of yourself. But I would tell myself, it's okay to not be okay, but don't stay that way, and be kind to yourself and give yourself some grace when you are not being a rock star.
Okay, I'm just trying to write this down. So I'm going to repeat this back to the Bamboo Pack, because I know somebody out there right now, one of you right now is thinking that you're just not in a good place. I know that. And many more than just one, but I'm talking to you right now. You're not feeling okay. It's okay to feel that way right now, but just don't stay there. Don't stay there. Think about who will you be on the other side of this. As Nina said, you will be different. You won't be the same. And it's your choice to be either a stronger, better version of yourself or a weaker, less version of yourself. Who will you be? And give yourself some grace. Just give yourself some grace. Take care of yourself, your mind, your body, your spirit, your heart. Take care of who you are right now. And be okay with where you are, but just make sure you don't stay there very long, because you will come out of this a different person, and it's your choice who you will be when you come out of it. So thank you for that wisdom. That's amazing.
Very well said. I like the way you said it and put it all back together there. That was really powerful, Brian. Thanks.
Well, thank you, man. You're just giving me so much ammunition here. Like, I literally, as we're going through the show, I always think, okay, what is going to be today's title of this episode? Now, AI generates a bunch of potential titles for me. Sometimes I choose them. Usually I doctor them up a little bit. With you, I'm like, I don't really know. There's so many.
It's been, that's interesting, because I had a hard time I'm a keynoter, and I had a hard time describing what I talk about and what I do, because there's a lot to it. So I'll be interested to see what you come up with.
Well, you'll get so how it works, and I was going to tell you this after, but for the Bamboo Pack, I don't know if you know how this works. When I shoot an episode, it goes through AI editing really within an hour or two after we're done recording. And then I doctor it up. My mother, happy birthday, Mom, yesterday. My mother, Dolores, turned 89 years old yesterday. And happy
birthday, Mom.
Oh, thank you. She's going to love it. She is the most amazing woman. My friends who visited me last night, they stopped on Monday and spent an hour at her house and brought her flowers. And my friend got here last night, and my friend Gretchen, she said, I want to be your mom when I get older at that age. Because she's 89. She still works, Nina. Works part-time. Wow. She walks every day with her best friend, Opal. She's incredibly active. Her mind is as sharp as it ever has been. I mean, she just continues to get better and better.
Amazing.
Yeah, she's an amazing woman. So happy birthday, Mom. I love you so much. So my mom is the first one who gets a copy of the show. I text it to her, and she listens to it when she goes to bed. So then, Nina, you'll get a copy right away. And then you can look at the title. And if you like it, we'll stick with it. If you think of something better, let me know. So anyway.
I trust you. I trust you and AI and your mother.
Okay. Yeah, my mom always gives me thumbs up or thumbs down. She'll say, okay. Oh, I love that one. I didn't really like that one so much. That person talked too fast. I'm like, okay. So my mom is so brutally honest. So
I like it. We all need a mom like that.
Oh, yes. My gosh, she is the greatest. Okay, so I have one more question, Nina. Mm-hmm. And this is is there any question that I didn't ask that you wish I would have asked? Or is there any final message that you want to encapsulate and leave with the Bamboo Pack?
Gosh, well, my final message is always that it's okay to not be okay. Just don't stay that way. No, I think we've captured everything, and we went through it. I'll throw this out there to end with. When you're going on a road trip, folks, and you hit an obstacle or you hit something in your path, your GPS will say recalculating route and figure out a way to get you there. It may not be the nicest route that you want to do, or maybe you want to pull off to the side of the road and wait a minute and get back on that same road, whatever it is, if you hit traffic or, and what we're talking about today, this is your internal GPS saying recalculating route and figuring out a way forward. Wouldn't it be nice if the universe had something where this is where you are, this is where you're going, let me recalculate that for you. But this concept of putting it in your timeline and figuring out exactly what you're dealing with and pulling out some people and working on your language and self-sabotage and that self-talk and story, that is what I call your resilience route navigator. That is your internal GPS. And you just need to build that. You just need to build that into your practice of how you handle things when they don't go right. There we go.
I love
Long answer to a quick question.
Resilience route navigator. Now, is that in your book?
That is not. That is in the book that I'm working on now. That's in the
Okay.
middle of this is the research and work that I'm putting out now. So when you said what else have I not shared? I haven't shared that as much, but that is the book that's in the works now. And I really think it's going to be helpful for so many people.
Now, when's the release date scheduled for that?
It is not scheduled. So this is a book I'm writing for, really focused on corporate America and people who are in what I call the excellence exhaustion. So not burnout, but just constantly raising the bar and doing more and raising the bar and doing more. And the goal is to get this out. I would like to get it out in February, March of next year. That would be my goal. But there'll be a lot of, in my blogs and all of that from here till then will be a lot of this content.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's informally right now commit to you coming on the show right before your book is released, whenever that is next year, and I really would want to. Maybe I can get a pre-copy of that book.
Oh, I would love that. If you want to be one of my early readers,
Yes,
I like that.
I would love to. I had a lady on. Gwendolyn Bounds is her name. Wendy Bounds. She's written a couple of amazing books. The first one was Little Chapel on the River, which I highly recommend. She was in her apartment right next to near the World Trade Center when the planes hit, and she had to escape the city. And then she and her partner went up to upstate New York to kind of regroup, and they found this little Irish bar, and they fell in love with the people. And she wrote a book about it. It encapsulated. It just was one of the most amazing books I've ever read. And I got a hold of her a few years ago. We became friends, and she was on the show a couple of years ago. And she wrote another book, Never Too Old or Not Too Old, about her now journey in her 50s of becoming a Spartan racer and doing all these high endurance runs and races.
Oh my gosh, I've done some of those.
She was a journalist as well. She was on Good Morning America. She was a journalist and on-air personality. Then she worked for Consumer Reports. Now she works for upstart news source. But that book right there is so good. It's so good. Like when you're in your 50s and you just want to start over or change a little bit of who you are, it talks about what you can accomplish in the second half of your life. It's really good. It really ties into your stuff. So I know Wendy's listening to it, so shout out to her book too. That's a great book. All right, so let's get you back on next year. I would love that. I'd like to do another episode in the fall with you. You've got so much to unpack here, and I know I just sense that we've just scratched the surface of this iceberg.
Well, I would love to, Brian. You call me and you let me know. I'd love to in the fall. I can talk to you more about my new concept around burnout and the work that I'm doing in that research too. It's really fascinating what we're doing to our own bodies. So yeah,
I think I need to hear that story just as much as anybody does. So yeah, I will. Well, I got your number, so I can text you anytime now. Hey, by the way, I do want to shout out to Amilka, your publicist from
Podcast Cola.
Podcast Cola. She's the one. Is it Castillo?
Yes.
Amilka Castillo. I know she'll be listening to this. Excellent work getting us together. I was so impressed with her.
I am new. Yeah, I am new with them, and I have had some great experiences. They're really been fun to work with. And they found me you, so I'm thankful for that.
I love it. Yeah, she reached out to me after listening to one of the episodes or something, and she said, I love the way you interviewed a former guest who's an author, and I thought, yeah, that sounds great. So she sent me all your bio and your website and all your links and this and that. So I'm like, yeah, let's get her on. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Amilka. Appreciate you getting us together. Now I have a new friend.
Absolutely. And you're going to get early morning texts from me now because you got it in my head.
We're both on the East Coast, so at least that's not a problem.
That's true.
It's my clients on the West Coast, and I forget. I get up at usually 5 to 5:30 is my time frame every day, and I'll be sitting there doing my stuff, and I'll text clients out. I'm like, it's only 3 o'clock their time. I hope their phones turn off. I've had a few people get pretty upset with me. I'm like, sorry, won't happen again.
Well, hopefully they have their phone turned off. If not, that's on them.
It is, yeah. Well, one of my bonus sons, Evan, and his wife, Sandy, just had a baby last Wednesday, I believe, Tuesday or Wednesday. And I have to remember, all my children are in Michigan. So I have 2 biological children, Ashley and Dawson. Then I have 3 bonus sons, Adam, Evan, and Taylor, and all 3 are now married. And I can't text our family text, which I text 5 to 6 times a week. I can't text all my kids and their spouses until like 9 o'clock because they're in Lake Tahoe. Evan and Sandy are. They just had a baby, so I always have to wait.
And they got little ones.
Yeah,
they've got little ones.
Yeah, they just got literally a week old. Actually, a week old today. Ooh, so.
Congrats. Anyway,
all right, my friend. Hey, I just want to let you know this was an incredible honor to get to know you today, and it was such a pleasure to have you on the show.
So fun, Brian. I am
awesome.
excited to hear how this all turned out. This has been a winding conversation, but so much fun to chat with you, and hope it was helpful for your listeners. And thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, it was a pleasure. I do want to share something. I saw something on your website, and I got to find out where your website is here on my computer. There we go. I want to leave with a quote, because in your website, you have quoted yourself. Your quote was, "I want to be in a room full of smart, hardworking people who are facing a challenge or change and embolden them to keep going. Then give them the tools to handle anything that gets in their way." You have done exactly that today on the Bamboo Lab podcast, so I can't thank you enough.
My pleasure, and thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, everyone. I know you're all going to be, remember, send those heart letters in. You're going to love this. I know you're going to love Nina and her content and her wisdom and her experience. So please share with me so I can share with her what this episode, her lessons and her wisdom and experience have done for you by listening to her story. Please hit that like button, smash that like button, actually. Really rate, review us, and please share this episode with 3 people you love, because there's so much that can help them change their perspective on anything that they're going through or will go through in their lives. So please do that. I'll talk to all of you in a week. In the meantime, please get out there and strive to be and give your best. Please show love and respect to others and to yourself. And please, by all means, live with a purpose. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Until next time.